And we are in Sagittarius season. Yay! I mean, don't you just love it? And I'll tell you why you love it if you love it, like I love it. Because it's after Scorpio season. And not because we don't love Scorpio season. We adore Scorpio season. But we love Sag season because we now have done, for that season of Scorpio, right? We have done in that space and time we've been thrown into our own underworld, and we've done some serious shadow work on a particular theme in our life. And now it's over, that season rather, and we have done some good work, and it's like time to celebrate. I mean, I celebrate Christmas because I live in a world where that it does, but I couldn't care less for it. But my point is that I think there is a reason why so much December is, at least in Northern Hemisphere, so forgive my limited worldview or cultural view, that is like that. It's like you just want to celebrate. I don't know. I mean, I do have Mars in Sag, and it's still not my return. But I don't know if that's maybe the only reason. Let me know how you feel about December season. I just love it. And there is that sense of like, we made it. Now we get to tell the story. So I'll be telling my story in my astro vlog in a couple of weeks maybe. So stay tuned if you're interested. But this week and this month, we are talking about Sagittarius, of course, but also Gemini in my series of It's Okay to Be Bad. So I'm going to cherry pick a couple of few traits of each, and I'm basically going to talk about why, because the whole purpose of the series is to look at what's bad, what we consider bad, right? What we think and feel it's bad, right? And consider what good is actually doing for us, which is at the core and at the heart of shadow work. So we should all be familiar with this approach, or rather, if not so much, then I imagine Scorpio season have tenderized us to it. So this month rather, I'm doing it again slightly differently, as I'm kind of learning as I'm going along how to do it better. At least let me know if you don't agree or how you'd like me to do it better. Although I have only 2 more, so I'll be done with this series, sorry. But I want to identify 2 key archetypes for each, so Sagittarius and for Gemini, because what I found in the course of the time I've been doing this series is that even though I try to kind of cherry pick a couple of 3 at a time of traits that are considered bad for each of the archetypes, whenever you start to dig and to understand what purpose they serve, I found that I always arrive at the same enough for this kind of the root, and the root is the one thing, this one kind of archetype, or the one truth about the sign that it seems to be at the core of. Maybe the one is too reductive, but it's a kind of this small as opposed to this big. So that's what I want to do with the archetypes. So the key archetype for Sagittarius is the teacher, and the key archetype for Gemini is the trickster. And so my explanations of their bad traits will essentially each time feed to the teacher archetype, or the trickster archetype, so the key archetype, as a way of explaining them. So let's start. So Sagittarius, the 3 that I cherry picked that are kind of bad traits of Sagittarius, at least in my experience, because I have strong the archetype, and I've been accused of these, and I also have experienced them on the receiving end, and I didn't like them. And for my own ego reasons and all that. So the 3 of the Sagittarius are excessiveness, arrogance, and preachiness. So excessiveness, just think of again the teacher archetype. It's like we have to have something energetically, but also in terms of knowledge, like the sense of excess before we can give, before we can pass on, which is what teacher does. So, okay, they have excess of energy and time, but it's really excess of, it's like this desire to give knowledge, to pass on some knowledge. And I've been a teacher, and I'm writing a book on astrology, and this is what I consider also my channel for teaching astrology in my own way, kind of non-typical, I suppose, or whatever, but still, right? It's because I have so much. There is excess of astrology experience and knowledge in my case. And so I'm dying to share. It's got to come out. There is so much of it. So there's that connection. Also, think about Sagittarius as an archetype that comes as a season, let's say, that comes after Scorpio season. And Scorpio season, where we have Scorpio in our chart, is where we are faced with our underworld, where we are asked to descend into our own personal hell through circumstances, other people, whatever, wherever that is in your chart, and then to do the shadow work, shadow integration, or to, just kick and scream and call ourselves, feel sorry for ourselves, which is also, it's a way of being. Definitely, I've been there and I still fall into that, absolutely. But it's always better if we try to look at it as something speaking to us with benevolence, even if it feels like malevolence, right? So that's the premise of it's okay to be bad. It's like whatever it's bad, how can we turn it to work for us? Because it is working for us. How can we find that truth in that badness? So excess in terms of Sagittarius, so we've been doing the shadow work, we've been through this hell, and usually that's limited time and space that we have in Scorpio season. Obviously we do shadow work daily, weekly, monthly, all the time, right? But that's a particularly intense period of time. So we focus on one or two things the most, right? Whatever is most alive in your life. And so all of a sudden what that is becomes the biggest part. If we are the whole of a circle and like a pie chart, and we have all these different segments in our life, kind of like similar to astrology chart, obviously. So all these segments would be now all of a sudden after Scorpio season, we have worked in this one area that has just grown because the Scorpio work or the shadow work is a personal growth work. So we have grown, but because we have focused on this one or two areas, because physically we couldn't do more than that, then there is an excess of us in that particular area, in the excess in the sense that we are like all of a sudden too confident. We are too much of something that we have worked on to people around us. So it's always this badness, this projection, judgment projected on us externally, because the others now, what do we do with this new person, with this new way? And then also, there is a sense of triumph in Sagittarius of like we've done this, which leads me to the second thing, arrogance. That's what happens in Sagittarius, again, because it comes, and this is why the whole wheel in its order is super important to understand why is that particular succession of signs and what that speaks about each sign or archetype, right? So Sagittarius coming again after Scorpio, there is that sense of, like I said, triumph, this sense of confidence, like we have survived it. We've been to hell and back, and now we live to tell the story. And so now we want to, we just feel so good about ourselves, right? Who doesn't? And so that can sometimes, that confidence, like if you think of any movie, in fact, all these like a hero's journey kind of movie, I can't think of one at the moment for the life of me, but I'm sure you can think of some. Just open Netflix, there'll be plenty. And it's that hero's journey, like all of these characters are arrogant, but in a way, like a deserved arrogance. So bad arrogance, the way we perceive it, is because someone just shows us what it means to succeed at something, to achieve something, to survive something, to triumph over adversity, which is Sagittarius after Scorpio, right? And so we are annoyed because we are not feeling brave enough, or we haven't done their work. So we are, they remind us, so we see them as how arrogant they are. They are too confident. Because of course they are, what they had to face and what they had to do. Of course they'll be too confident. But it's a confidence of just a moment of like, it's fire. It's like, there is no denying that sense of expansiveness and the heat, that's what expands us, which is literally heat balloon, I think Jupiter is a giant gas planet, right? So it's a step. It's like we get to then Capricorn, and we then come back to be more humble, and because of the experiences we lived. But now we're too excited. We just come out and look, we survived, right? And thrived even and all that. Okay, so that's arrogance. Why arrogance is good. Preachiness. So remember how I said, and also, sorry, to connect with the teacher, the confidence piece. So we established the arrogance is really just judgment of something that we don't like because it reminds us of what we lack, right? But essentially, it's really just feeling too confident, too much. This too muchness is a Sagittarius piece. And I'm sure you heard it in utterly outside of astrology context of how, just my too muchness, so many memes out there, to actually celebrate too muchness. And thankfully yes, thank goodness for that. Now, in terms of the teacher archetype, so there is also that you have to be too confident. I mean, you have these, like, think of teachers the students rather, who are usually, well, less experienced, or if you're literally a teacher in a high school, let's say, or even whatever, elementary school or whatever, those are like little challengers. In fact, they're little Geminis, they're tricksters. They will want to poke holes in your argument. They will want to, not every student, and like I say, I've been literally a teacher in a literal sense, but also in my astrology sense. And I always welcomed it. It doesn't make you feel always good, or certainly good about yourself, but I love the curiosity. Anyway, but that's the dynamic of a healthy dynamic between teacher and student. And so you have to be too confident. But again, you can argue that too confidence would be like you're not open to like realizing that you're wrong. And you will find, and this is the beauty of mutable. So Sagittarius and Gemini are mutable, right? Sagittarius is mutable fire, and Gemini is mutable air. So Sagittarius is changeable. He has no problem being like changing his view because someone has pointed a hole in their argument. He might still not do it, he might still have a bit of a ego thing going on till he does that, but it changes because it's in nature. It's changeable, it's mutable, right? So that's why it's the teacher archetype, because it has that mutability. It will be changed by the students. It will allow for the change. So that's the arrogance piece, the confidence piece, the overconfidence. And that's, so as I said this, I just remembered another note I took about the overconfidence. So it's over someone. So this is where this is what I meant earlier, that we feel called out, like we're not confident enough. But we don't have to, Sagittarius, or, this trait doesn't require you to feel that. Me feeling super confident it doesn't, in my knowledge, let's say, that I'm passing on, doesn't mean that your lack of knowledge is what makes me so confident. I feel I now speak truly from my own experience, like just my own personal. I just feel, because I have so much knowledge, I have spent 30 plus years intensely studying, is it 30 plus? Yeah, since first Saturn return. Like properly deep down, shadow work of various kinds, and then some years into it with astrology. So I just have so much knowledge and my own, so I am overconfident or super confident, right? But I'd love to have equal conversations with everyone, meaning equal in the sense of like that you feel confident enough in your knowledge, and you should, because it's what you have. You should be confident about what you have, right? So there is no requirement on the Sagittarius and this overconfidence that requires someone to have underconfidence, right? It's the perception of the receiving end of the under that it feels, and I know because I also felt underconfident in some other instances, and it's, I would slip into that dynamic of blame, right? Or rather just taking it personally, where it's not meant to be personal, right? It's just not, it never is, right? Anyway, and the third one, so hopefully that's clear, right? The third one is preachiness. So that is, what did I mention at the beginning? Oh yes, that Sagittarius survives to tell the story, right? Sagittarius is also the seeker. So think again about Scorpio coming before Sagittarius. It's like, what was all that about? What was it for? Why did I have to go through my hell? And what was the meaning of that? Because when you experience, like, I think I couldn't actually read a book because it was too horrific, even though I couldn't. I started and it was already, anyway, which is the one by Viktor Frankl, and in Man's Search of Meaning, I think is called. Forgive me if I'm butchering but he's a survivor, the title, he's a Holocaust survivor, and he wrote a book where essentially, this is my understanding, I haven't read it, but I've heard it mentioned many times, and I've read the synopsis and all that kind of what's the essence of it, what's the message ultimately, which is that what saves us in adversity is that we find meaning. And I don't know how he found meaning, so I haven't read the book, I couldn't, it's just too horrific, in my, like, I presume that it is, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Just wanted to qualify that I haven't read it. But I love that kind of premise, and yet I still don't know how someone with such an adversity found meaning in that, like how I would do it. But that's basically this Sagittarius piece. I think actually he might be Sagittarius, which would be utterly actually irrelevant, and you don't have to be Sagittarius to share any of this at all. But it would have been a nice little quirky little synchronicity or something, I don't know. But anyway, so it's like if you've been through something hellish, then you need to, it's absolute imperative that you find meaning for your suffering. Otherwise you may just self-destruct. That's it. That's the essence of Sagittarius. So it's a truth seeker. So the truth piece is this, like, it's a fire, so it expands. It's like there is something slightly beyond personal, hence the seeking of the truth, because it's not earth that kind of comes down, and it almost like earth is almost, in terms of elements, something that gets condensed and sort of shaped into this individual shape of one person, right? Where Sagittarius doesn't have that by energetic blueprint of its own, right? Which is because it's fire, and fire expands, it grows. But because it's been through it itself, it ends up, the preachiness, or rather, I should really kind of go back to that. The preachiness that is at the core of this badness that I'm trying to describe here, is that it sounds like when Sagittarius tells the story that it's speaking like it's the truth, right? But what I'm trying to show you is that it's inevitable to speak like that when you are embodying, when you are, and I often find myself that I do think this is, well, I don't think it's the truth, but it's certainly, well, I do. In some way, I probably do. And I'm obviously aware that it's my truth. But there will be some of you out there that will share that this is your truth for today, at least, or something, right? My point being is that it's my the truth, right? So in that sense, it's a capital T, because it's so embodied and personal for me. It's like the only truth I know. And so because it's meant to tell the story of how we are all meant to tell our stories, and there will be some that will resonate with them and others won't, and they'll find someone else who they resonate with, right? So this story of my truth needs to be spoken, and in order for it to be spoken, what else? I mean, it's fire, it's creative, right? Fire creates. Literally, it's an agent of creation. Like you meld and you whatever, you kind of do things with it. And so it needs to be told well. It needs to be inspiring, fire, right? As in fire signs, and fire is inspiration, it's the spirit, right? And so in all of that, it becomes this ultimate story, this like and with the hero, right, in it. So of course the hero will have the truth, it's his truth. So this personal becomes the universal, and in Sagittarius it's just a way of presenting it. And this is what I mean, but it's mutable fire. So if you ever if you have someone in your life that is like this, preachy, and sounds like they know the truth and they're kind of ramming it down your throat, sit down with them and present them with in a way that it's not, you're not coaxing the fire, you're not fighting fire with fire, you're bringing emotion, water, or fighting air with fire, actually. My point is not to aggravate the person. Try to kind of approach them without judgment, without making them a bad guy or woman or person, whatever, and offer your own, like a different truth, and see how they will change. Well, how they will allow it, how they will not be fixed in their own. It's still their truth because it's the only truth they know, and their probably response will address that of course, yeah, your truth is not like mine, but this is my truth, and it's the only truth I know, right? See what I mean? So mutability is really that this preachiness just seems like that to us because Sagittarius, it's fire, so it has that power that it's like you cannot notice it. Air, maybe you cannot notice, but fire you have to notice. It's like you cannot. So that is in your face, and again, it's the projection. It's like, oh, look at them, tell me what the truth is. Well, no, are they really telling you that this is the truth? That I speak here, like in general, for instance, and I do speak it as the truth because it's been for me. And so, but I appreciate totally that it isn't for you, but then you wouldn't be here, right? If there isn't something that you resonate with. You get what I mean? So it's not meant to be the truth. It's just, for all the reasons I just explained, it sounds like the truth because it is for the speaker. And it is all about storytelling, Sagittarius. Okay, and now Gemini. Gemini, the key archetype for Gemini is the trickster. And that's it, the end of the video. because that sums it all. But I'll just kind of oh, sorry, did I mention the preachiness? Well, yeah. So it's like you have to, the teacher actually, and the preacher, because you have to inspire your students, and you will hear afterwards that students afterwards, when these students became grown-ups, or think of yourself when you had your favorite teacher that really kind of sparked something in you, and you loved their lectures or lessons or whatever, and you took that truth of theirs. So okay, if it's mathematics or whatever, but someone else, like some other kind of teacher of different kind, literature or art or just life, whatever, right? That you took it as your own truth, and only eventually to find out that it's not your truth. But for a while, it was the torch that you held, and it helped you. So you had to, so the teacher had to kind of embody it in the way that it's the truth. This is the way, right? Just follow this way. It's amazing. And it also tests your own, and now I'm getting into the Gemini, tests your own mental discernment. And so why would you just follow someone because they tell you, right? Nobody's holding you a gun against you, right? You just choose. So why are you choosing? So we are getting into Gemini. So like I said, the trickster is the key archetype for Gemini. And the three qualities that I chose as the kind of the typical bad traits of Gemini is social butterfly, cheating, and this is to do with rules, but it might also slip into other kind of cheatings, but this is with rules of the games or any rules. So it could be relationships, but I'm really kind of just speaking of the rules in general, and then you decide your experience of it. And non-committedness, non-committal. So social butterfly, cheating, and non-committing. So social butterfly, again, think of the that Gemini comes after Taurus. So in Taurus, we have this self everything. It's like the self has finally solidified with all the experiences of Aries. These are my experiences, and this is who I am, and it's like reveling in that. So now it's learning how to just rely on itself, because at this stage of the evolution through the zodiac, there isn't anyone else, right? It's the second. So of course it will be learning how to self-rely because there's no one else. Aries is off experiencing, so you can't really count on Aries being there with it. And Aries doesn't really care much with Taurus, meaning it just doesn't, they don't necessarily share affinities, And so then comes Gemini, who's like had enough of self, just on my own, just self-reliant, sufficient. No, it's just dying to socialize. Look at all these people. Like it's like we're all of a sudden thrown into this kind of environment that's outside of us. And, for humans, that's the world, like with all its facts about, this is tree, this is a sky, this is a curtain, this is one, there's a person, there's that person, what's their name, blah, blah, blah. So there is all kinds of stuff, but a lot of it is people as well. And so Gemini has this absolute necessary, it's like essential, like the air that they breathe with, or the lungs they breathe with, is the social interaction. Now, the trickster piece, sorry, let me just see. Before I go to trickster, I just want to add one last thing about the social interaction. Gemini is, because it's like Taurus kind of got all the experiences from Aries, and it's now like going, okay, so this is who I am, this is what I've become through all these experiences, like, and all I have is me. So how am I'm now just like collecting data on me. Now, even though that's not language of Taurus, because it doesn't consider it's all about through senses, because it doesn't use the mind, hence why Taurus is associated with Buddha, because that's what Buddha is doing, is like mind is the cause of suffering. And so let's forget about the mind in the sense of the master, right? But it's all the body or the something else inside us that it's the essence of us and all that stuff. So that's all Taurus stuff, like I say. But but it is still kind of like a data collection. It's like learning about ourselves through ourselves without a mind. But then we come to the Gemini, and it's the mind as well, is one of the key body parts of Gemini, meaning that corresponds to Gemini. And it is how we collect now data, because we're now computing. We're like, there is this, there is that, and there is that. So we're collecting data. So that's so important. And so that is like food for Gemini, proper food, like soul food, to collect data. That's just that. It doesn't matter what data, it's just collecting it. It's like Mercury rules Gemini and Mercury rules Virgo, and in Virgo we start to bring discernment. But see how many? That's a square, whole square. So Gemini, then we have Cancer, Leo, and then we get to, so we have Cancer and Leo before we can even, we are equipped to use discernment, because Gemini doesn't care about discernment. It's all about like, it's fun. It's like I say, someone's been let out of the house for the first time, and after, being locked away or so, like in Taurus, like in Insula, whatever. And it's, oh my God, all this like exciting stuff. And it's air, and it's mutable again. So air is like flies, and it's, cannot be contained, or easily, certainly. And then mutable is that it's just meant to be changing. So it's like, it has to be changing the environments of social interactions, for instance. So it's like, to do anything else. So if you think it's your friend and he's just like, oh, he's also a friend with someone else, and then he's also a friend with someone else, and you start to feel jealous, I mean, you have killed the Gemini in their friend, whatever they have in Gemini that's kind of making them such a social butterfly, let's say, or maybe whatever that makes them, whatever in their chart makes them so. But it would be something Gemini or Mercurial. And so, but the purpose of it is to collect data. Now, that data is useful to all of us, to you as their friend about the world, also as they're spreading the word through media, social media personally, or even a lot of them are writers, journalists. That's a kind of like a very fast-paced kind of, Gemini profession, let's say. Blogging are perfect for them and all that. It's just spreading the facts. Well, the observations. It's not even observations. It is like, I mean, they're probably making some sense of it, of course, but the point is to just kind of play with meaning. It's like, look at that and that together. And doesn't it look like this? And it's, if you, kind of like a healthy Gemini doesn't have answers, but has questions, forever questions. So doesn't it look like this? And then, and in that, he suggests that it may look like this, but it might not, depending on who's looking and from what point of view. And being such a flighty social butterfly, has seen the scene from so many different angles. So Libra sees from another angle, like it's kind of locked into that back and forth, like polarity, where this is multilarity, like multitude. It's like multiplicity. And I never like that when they say for Gemini two-faced, which is why I didn't use it here, because it does suggest like the duality, I mean, the Gemini being like the twins. But to me, that's a symbolism, reduced symbolism of that interaction with another. It's like, oh, if there was human symbol for every sign, I would say, I don't know, actually it wouldn't work, but still, Taurus would be one, even though you say Aries is one, but then it's not really, because it's not about the one. Aries doesn't care about the one, it cares about the experience. Anyway, but Gemini, really, the symbol is for me, the way I understand it, the way I work with it, is that it's just to say, here we meet another. And that another is essential. It's like, oh my God, we can play, we can learn about each other, but it's really learning about me, and I'm learning it also about you. So you get, hopefully, why social butterflyness is actually a gift to all of us. Okay, second thing. Oh, and the tricksteriness, I'm connecting it, each one with the trickster, with the key archetype. No, in fact, I'm going to do it at the end, because this is, some of the archetypes kind of really, almost like I'll be repeating myself if I was to do it for each one. So the second bad trait of Gemini is cheating. And like I said, it's the rules. So it's basically, Gemini doesn't, in fact, no, let's do the trickster piece, because Gemini doesn't take anything seriously, because we haven't gotten to like the Cancer, where we start to feel unsafe, and all of a sudden we have these emotions, we don't know what to do with the feelings, the different things. We encounter a completely different world in Cancer, but in Gemini, we're not there yet. So we don't really have that sense of unsafety. And it's all just like play. It's like puzzle solving, but it's more play than actually solving. Like I say, it doesn't really care for the answer so much. It just cares for the practice of just unpacking and just kind of going, oh, what's that? Like my dad is a Gemini, has so much Gemini in him. And it's like, he just used to, he would take the car apart because something was wrong with the car, right? Engine, whatever. And my friend he used to work with him, help him out. And he used to just crack him up laughing every time, because he then puts it all back. But then there is stuff that doesn't seem to all of a sudden not have place anymore. That's your trickster archetype to the core, my dad. Dismantling the car, solving the problem, putting it back where it needs to go. Oh, well, what are these pieces? And they're not the ones that were like apparently the bad ones that they were like, you know, discarded because then replaced with new. No, these are, I don't know, all of a sudden they don't seem to matter much. The engine works fine, everything's fine. That's a trickster. So it's like, it's basically when we approach the reality from that first that is around us, because that's what Gemini does. Taurus is about my own internal reality, but Gemini is external, and at that stage it's still, like I say, it's a childlike approach to it. Then we can see how reality is so malleable, because we are not too serious about it. We are not afraid of it. We're just, and we can see how we can affect it. And Mercury is, in fact, if you work with archetypes of gods or whatever, Mercury is the one that actually changes. It's the language. That's what the prayers are. That's what that's what the spells are. The words are spells. The magician, which is Mercury or Gemini, in tarot, is the magician. I think, can't think of now on my feet, but the idea behind magic is that it's spells, and words are spells because Gemini is words, because they have that power. But you can't get too hung up on, you know, the set meaning and the answer. You kind of have to be far more light on your feet, which is, again, if you look at the Mercury statues and images, he has wings on his feet, because it's lightness of touch, hence the social butterfly. And that's the nature of trickster. It's like nothing is really what it seems, but it is what it seems, in the sense that it's like we created with our words and with the meaning we give things, we create a certain reality, and it is, but it isn't. Do you see what I mean? Again, it's trickster. And the last one, so the cheating of the rules is just to show us that poke holes at those realities, and which is what I meant also earlier about the teacher. It's like that's what students are for, and Gemini is the student archetype amongst others. In fact, I probably could have used the student. Maybe that would have been better, because then the whole social butterfly is learning about socializing. It's like it's learning, but it's like that's the purpose, the learning, not to find the truth like Sagittarius does, but to just learn a new skill, because it's fun, because it uses and utilizes so many abilities that Gemini has, and it's multi-skilled for that reason, or that's the reason why it's looking for so many different things, just to learn, right? Not to do anything necessarily with it. And so maybe the student archetype would have been neater. I should have thought of that, but that would have meant another week. Sorry. So the last one, non-committal, is kind of the most trickstery, or the clearest. It shows the trickster most clearly. So if the Sagittarius is looking for the truth, because it wants to find its one truth, because there is one truth for you, you know, your truth. So Gemini doesn't need that, because, like I say, remember it's a third sign, so it's not even, doesn't even know about the human experience past itself, right, as an archetype. So of course it's just a social butterflyness. All of that is just like, there are so many truths. It's just every single thing is a truth. It's like, it's a fact. The leaves are green. It's a truth, right? It's not my truth. It's not the truth. It's a truth. Then if you're looking from a different angle, it might be dark green. So if we go into the shades, that's also truth. So he sees all that. And of course it's not going to commit. I mean, it would be crazy to commit. That's crazy to commit, like to be committed. But even to a person, right? Even to a person, sure, you know, if one enters marriage, and so back to cheating, and, you know, I'm not condoning that necessarily or advocating that. But, you know, no, I'm not going to go there. Another 10 minutes of this video, I'm not doing that. But essentially the non-committedness and the whole cheating piece is that it's too smart, hence the magic of the words, in the knowing only, not because it's intelligent, like, you know, like knowing facts. Although it does, but they don't stay with him necessarily, because it's just too many. They just like come and go. the smartness of Gemini is just knowing that sort of everything is trickster in its nature because of the nature of our 3D reality, that we are creating our reality and thus it is our reality, therefore that's true. But really, that makes it just one little truth and one little reality. And he's aware of that. He knows that. That's what's making him smarter than anyone else. Just that. So you can be just knowing that you are also as smart as him, but you have to then act like that. And Gemini has it in it because he hasn't gone through the rest of the chart to know better, if you like, or to even know the human complexity, because it's not there yet in its own evolution. And that's it for this week. See you next week.